Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about An Ice Cold Mother Part 7. Today we're talking about the life of Shonda Vander Ark. Now, the next form of punishment and torture that Shonda Vander Ark and Paul Ferguson would subject Timothy Ferguson to would be their use of hot sauce, and it's actually this that would actually make this case infamously known. And it's not sure whose idea would come up with the idea. Paul would say that it was Shonda's idea, and Shonda would say that it was Paul's idea. But it is at this point that Shonda would start using hot sauce as a form of punishment to keep Timothy from eating. And in her mind, she would use this form as a way that if she kept using this hot sauce and feeding it to him, that eventually he would just not want to eat. And she would eventually order a brand of hot sauce called Elijah's Extreme Regret, which is not your normal hot sauce, as it's made of two of the hottest peppers on the planet. The hot sauce would consist mainly of two specific peppers, and that would be the Trinidad Moria Scorpion and the Carolina Reaper, two of the hottest peppers on the planet. And how they would use this as a form of punishment is really appalling. It's said that Shonda and Paul would not just drip hot sauce on stale bread, but they would actually soak it, and it would just be completely marinated with this hot sauce. And they would actually start making Timothy eat this soaked hot sauce bread, and he would have to eat every last crumb. And he knew that if he didn't eat it, there would be more harsher punishments coming his way. And indeed, he would be correct, because on times that he wasn't able to eat the stale bread because it was just too hot, his brother Paul would actually walk over, hold his head up, pry his mouth open, and actually force the hot sauce down his brother's mouth. And it wouldn't end there. It's actually said that there would actually be a text message between Shonda and Paul. And Shonda would actually text Paul one day and would suggest that he take the hot sauce and drip it on Timothy's private parts. In her own words, and I quote, "I'm not saying you have to touch it, just drop a little bit on the tip of it just to see what happens." And thankfully, Paul would actually tell Shonda no to this, and he would tell Shonda that there was no way he was going to be pouring hot sauce on his brother's private parts. I think this bit of information about Shonda just proves, one, just how evil she is, and just how sadistic she was, that she literally took enjoyment from the torturing of her own child. Now, by June of 2022, Timothy Wood actually had been with Paul and Shonda for about 6 months. And during the entire time that he was with Shonda and Paul, he was subject to all kinds of torture the entire time. From the entire time that he was there, all of the punishments that I had mentioned never stopped. The starving, the constant running around up and down the stairs, the wall sits, the kneeling in the closet with zip ties around his hands, the constant having alarms sounded constantly, the ice baths, everything never stopped for poor Timothy. And they just kept adding more and more and more as time progressed. And because he was being starved so much, Timothy would lose a ton of weight. And not just that he lost weight, he was at a very life-threatening rate, to where by the June of 2022, it said that Timothy was so skinny from starvation that his ribs and his collarbone would be protruding through his skin. Most authorities and people who saw Timothy afterwards would say that his body basically looked like a human skeleton, and basically looked like someone took elastic or plastic and just stretched it over a skeleton model. And Paul Ferguson would take notice of this, and by late June of 2022, he would actually become concerned for his brother's safety. And this is the only time that Paul would actually show any concern for his brother. He would actually go and text his mother, and he would tell Shonda that he was starting to become extremely concerned about his brother's health and safety, and would say that he's been losing a lot of weight and was concerned that the amount of starvation punishments that they were giving him was not okay, and would ask permission to actually fix his brother something to eat. And instead of Shonda having some form of human decency and say, you know, this is wrong, we should really not be doing this to Timothy, she would just completely tell Paul, no, you're forbidden to make Timothy food whatsoever. And it's not sure how he did this, but it said that after he would get off the phone, he would actually sneak inside the kitchen and he would make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And he would also scramble some eggs and cheese, and he would sneak it over to Timothy and feed it to him. And it said that Timothy was so ecstatic and so happy about the meal, and he would eat every last crumb. And I really wish this was the part of the story where Paul has a change of heart and he really starts fighting for his brother and tries to save his brother from this. But unfortunately, this was the only time that Paul did anything decent for his brother. By the next following day, Paul would just go back to abusing and torturing his brother like he had always done. And this is one of the main reasons why I have such ill regard for Paul, because he had a prime opportunity to do the right thing, but he just didn't do anything. By July 5th, 2022, Timothy's health would take a complete nosedive because of everything that he had been through. It had finally taken a toll, and it was seen on the camera that he was laying inside of his closet, just slowly breathing, and he was just completely unresponsive, and his breathing, as I said before, was just very slow and raspy. And Paul would actually go and he would call Shonda and would say that he wasn't responding and he couldn't get his brother to wake up, and would ask permission if he could call the ambulance, which Shonda would completely refuse Paul and would tell him to put him in the ice tub and give him an ice bath. Paul would do as Shonda had instructed, and he would call her back and say that he put Timothy in the ice bath and had filled it up, but Timothy was not responding whatsoever. And Shonda would say that, okay, well, let's try to bait him awake, and would tell Paul to go down into the kitchen and to cook one pizza roll. And after he had done cooking the pizza roll, to take it back upstairs and wave it in front of his face, and would say if Timothy reacts to the smell of the pizza roll, take it back from him. And Paul would do exactly as Shonda had instructed. He would take this pizza roll he had just cooked up and would wave it in front of Timothy's face, and the aroma from the pizza roll would actually wake Timothy up, and he would go to reach for the pizza roll because he was just that hungry from starvation, and Paul would actually take it away. And Paul and Shonda would be completely livid from the fact that Timothy woke up from the aroma, and Paul would be seen telling Shonda, I'm ready to kill him. I'm tired of him faking this. And it's said that Shonda and Paul both would tell Timothy, see, you're faking it. You're not really that sick. And Shonda would instruct have Paul leave Timothy in the ice bath until she got home from work, which was 4 hours away.